All right, so this is going to be a quick introduction to Next.js, how to use it, how to create web apps using Next.js, which is a framework for React. Before you get started, there's a couple programs that would be very helpful to have on your computer. The first one is Visual Studio Code. This is available for every operating system, Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's a Microsoft product, but it is available for every platform. The next program that you need to install is Node.js. And Node.js is essentially a JavaScript runtime environment. It allows for creating servers, web apps, all kinds of cool stuff you can do. It's also a package manager. It will allow you to install the dependencies you need, including the dependencies for React. Once you have this stuff installed, you should be able to open your command prompt or terminal, and you should be able to type in node-v, and you should have a version of Node. You should be able to type npm/v, and that'll give you a version of npm, which is Node Package Manager. It's part of Node. It comes along with it. Make sure you keep that active when you install. It's one of the options. You could deactivate it, but just leave that active. And then the other one is code V, and whoa, I don't know if that's some secret code, hopefully not. So yeah, basically that's just ensuring that Visual Studio Code is installed as well. Visual Studio Code needs to be installed in a way that you can run it as admin. And we're just going to go in here. This is Visual Studio Code. When you first run it, it'll look a little bit different than this, but all you have to do is File, Open Folder, and you're going to create a new folder for whatever your project is. In this case, I have a bunch of junk folders in there. In this case, we have one called Maximum Recursion. Then when I go to my terminal, new terminal, which depending on your monitor size, this might appear here, or it might be in the triple dot menu here, but new terminal. And then you'll see you'll see basically the path to whatever folder you're currently in is here. And we're going to just check here. We're going to type in the same things, node/v, npm/v, and npm/v. We're just going to make sure that our commands are working in our terminal here as well. Now this terminal uses like Linux commands, so rather than using dir to get the contents of a directory like you would in the command prompt, you would use ls. It's not super important to understand, but navigating, you use cd to navigate to other folders. But let's go ahead and create a new Next.js project. So the way that I'm going to do that, I'll go to the React.js homepage just to give a little example of what's going on here. And basically what React is, it's a component library for JavaScript. And it allows you to use something called JSX, which is a special JavaScript notation to sort of combine HTML and JavaScript together in a really clean way, in a much more easy to work with way than standard JavaScript's interactions with HTML. It sort of lets you do everything all together instead of creating a separate JavaScript script and separate HTML. You can kind of combine them together into one, and you can see some examples of that down here, and we'll get more into that as we create our little app. So I'm going to go to Learn React and Installation, Start a New React Project. Now, what this is mentioning is that in order to use React, we generally want to use a React framework. React itself is not a framework. It's sometimes listed as a framework, but it's just a component library. You can use React without a framework, as it mentions here, but they recommend that you do use a framework, and I recommend that you use a framework as well. As far as which framework to use, the most popular ones sort of change over time. Back when I learned, the most popular one was Create React App. Unfortunately, that one's sort of fallen off quite a bit. However, the current most popular one is Next.js, and that's the one we're actually going to be using. It is very, very cool. It has this a lot of functionality to create interactions between server side and client side, stuff that we don't really need to get into until we get more advanced. But let's just say getting started with Next is going to be helpful and pay dividends down the road as you make more complex projects. So I'm going to copy this and I'll paste it right into here, npx create next app latest. Now, if you get anything saying npx command doesn't exist, or what you might get is an error saying, let me see if I can remember how it is. It's like app roaming npm missing or something, like app data. Yeah, it was something like this. This occurs sometimes where it'll say you're missing the app data roaming npm folder. Now, it's very weird because the fix for this is literally just creating a new directory in this folder. So going to your C users, your username, finding the app data folder, which is a hidden folder. So you have to make sure you have view hidden folders active, then the roaming folder inside of that, then create an npm folder. And yeah, that'll work. Apparently this other stuff works as well, but hey, it should work. I just wanted to mention that error because that can come up. I had some people who were trying to do this who had that issue, so hopefully you don't encounter that issue, but if you do, that's the workaround for it. Now, if you don't get any errors, it'll ask you if you want to proceed, and we'll say yes. And then what is our project named? And I'll just call it sample app or something like that. Now it's going to ask a bunch of questions here. Do I want to use TypeScript? Now this is a very important decision. Should I use TypeScript or not? I would say if you're just getting started, you should use TypeScript because it teaches you better coding practice and it helps you. Basically all TypeScript is, it's a wrapper for JavaScript that incorporates strong typing so that it ensures that you're typing your variables correctly. So you're, making things either numbers or strings, that kind of stuff. You're properly typing JavaScript objects, things like that. It just makes it so you actually are able to find a lot of errors before they occur, because TypeScript is going to tell you like, hey, this function's expecting a number and you're giving it a string. What's going on with that? So it'll basically save you some headache if you spend the time learning how to use TypeScript early on. Would you like to use ESLint? This is another thing that kind of helps to make sure that you're coding well. So I'll leave that on as well. Tailwind CSS. This is a CSS library. It's class-based, meaning it has a bunch of built-in classes that you can add to your components. I would rather use something called Material UI, which is a component library. Again, we don't need to get into that super in depth yet, but this is something to keep in mind. I'll go ahead and leave this off. I don't like Tailwind that much and I don't really use it. Source directory, yes, I'll use a source directory. And the app router, yes, I really do like the app router quite a bit. It's another thing that won't really come into play until we get a little bit deeper into the functionality of Next and we create multi-page apps and internal APIs and all this other stuff, but it's pretty cool to start working with. I don't need to adjust the default import alias at all. Now it's installing everything. So this is what Node.js does. It allows you to install all these packages and get everything set up really nicely. And it does all the work for you, essentially. Warns you about some deprecated stuff. That's okay. I don't care. And once it's done, you get success here. And what you'll see is we have a folder, sample-app. And inside of there, we have these node modules folder. And what the node modules are, these are the dependencies. These are the dependencies that are installed along with creating a Next app. The package.json file gives you all those dependencies, like the dev dependencies, TypeScript, ESLint, all that extra stuff that we installed. That's all these instructions are here. And basically that saves us from having to, if we're trying to, let's say, push our project to a remote repository so that someone else can pull that down and work on the same project as you. They don't need to have the node modules, which can be take a lot of space on your computer. or it's a lot to upload and download, all they need is the package.json file, and then it will tell them all of the packages that they need to have when they start working on the project. So later I'll probably install Material UI, and you'll see Material UI will automatically be added to these dependencies in the package.json. These are just essentially instructions for how your Node.js project should be functioning. Now, the issue we have right now is when you create a new app, it will create a separate folder for that app, and that's fine. We don't mind that at all. So make sure that whatever directory you have, that's kind of the main directory you use for all your projects, and then create your projects directly from there. But once I create my project, I need to navigate into this folder. So I'm going to do that down here, cd sample app. Now, if you remember, I could type code as a command, and that will actually open Visual Studio Code. So if I type, now that I'm here in the terminal, if I want to change my Explorer directory, what I can do is type code and then dot. And this will open a new instance of Visual Studio Code, but it'll open it directly in the sample app folder. This is not necessary, but I think it just makes things a little bit cleaner. If you have multiple projects, you might have a whole bunch of folders listed over here. So I just like to reopen it into that new directory that was created with that project. So I'll type code dot. Now, if you're getting something that says code dot does not exist, it might mean that you need to run your Visual Studio Code in admin mode or as an administrator, something like that. That should probably help, but I shouldn't have that issue here. And now it opened. So you notice the difference is this one is the top directory is maximum recursion, which is the folder, and then the app folder is below. But in this case, the sample app is the top level directory, so I'm just working directly in that. So now I can close down this previous one and I can just start working directly in here. And now when I open my terminal, new terminal, it will automatically open up to that working directory where my project is. So I'm in my project folder. We're all good. How do I run my app? Well, when I installed it, it actually created some default HTML code. It sort of gave me a boilerplate, like a sample page with some example code that I can work with. And the way I run that, and you'll see it actually in the package.json, is dev. Is this dev command. It says scripts dev. So the way I run that is npm run dev. And this will just constantly run. Now, if I go back to my browser here, move this over here, I'll move this over here so that you can see them separately. If I go to this URL, if you get any errors with this, it means you have something else that's running on this localhost 3000. If you do any other kind of web dev stuff, that can happen, or if you're running certain other programs that are monitoring network things, or, there's a lot of different things that can be taking up ports. But hopefully that's not the case. As long as it's not, you just go localhost 3000 over here. And you can see that now it's accessing it, compiling it. It returns a 200 code, which means that it was successful. So this is all the server traffic stuff over here. It says, oh, it's got to get the favicon. It's got to get all these images, So if I go over here, now you can see this is the example website that's created. And so if I make any changes, like let's go to page.tsx, this is where all this stuff is. So right now it says get started by editing source.app. Let's change that part to say hello world and then save. It will automatically, so it added this hello world thing here. Oh, I want to get rid of this code here. That's why it's still showing up. But now it says hello world here instead. So any changes I make here, all I have to do is save this and it will automatically, it's called hot reloading. It'll automatically reload the browser here. I don't want any of this junk actually. So what I usually do when I'm getting started is I'll kind of clear everything out here. So what I'm going to do is empty everything from main to main, and then I'm going to get rid of this class name as well. And I don't want any styling or anything. And I'm going to say hello world again. It's still going to have some styling. It's got this weird repeating background thing, and that's because there's another file that we need to change here, which is layout.tsx, and that's importing global CSS. And if I go to globals.css, this is the global styling that's applied. So what I like to do is not delete this, but I like to just empty this file out and save again. And now all that styling is gone. There is still some kind of styling being applied here though, because I can see that that font, let me try refreshing. That font should be sans serif, or should be serif, but it's actually sans serif. Is this stuff still being applied? It might be. So I'm going to delete this file, and which basically, sorry, let me, whoops. And then I'm going to remove all this stuff here. And for some reason, the font's still persisting. Let me try closing this. So if you ever want to close your server down, you press Control-C in the terminal, and then it'll say terminate batch job, and then you say yes. And then if you want to rerun it, instead of typing it out each time, you can just press up on your keyboard and npm run dev. And we'll refresh this over here again. Trying to figure out where it's getting the styling from, because I don't even see anywhere that it should be getting styling. Maybe here. Let's try taking this out of the body here. There we go. Okay, so it was just some extra styling that was being thrown on there. I'm going to get rid of all this. Oh, okay, so the font was being applied from this Google font. So I'm going to take both of these things, actually all three of these lines out. I'm just cleaning up my program right now. This is where you set the title and description. So the title will appear at the top of the tab over here. So if I say my sample app, and then I go over here and I type, you know, a description describing my sample app, that's not going to appear here, but when I go inside, if I open up, I pressed F12 to open up the developer tools, and then if I go to my let's just do it this way, right click inspect, then I can see in the head here, I can see the title, my sample app, and I can see the description that I just created describing my sample app. So all that stuff that I've been doing over here is translated into HTML code. They generate these cool little scripts that are just basically putting it all together for us. And it's just, it's doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and it's basically less stuff for us to worry about. So metadata I like to keep in because I want the title and description there. This is fine. This stuff is fine. So basically what this children represents is anything in my app router will be routed through layout.tsx, and whatever the child page is will be put into the body. So if we look at my page.tsx, this is the default home page. If you've done normal HTML coding, you'll know that when you navigate to like the directory, you'll have a home page. It'll look automatically for an index.html file. With React, in the app router, it'll look for a page.tsx file at the top level of the app folder. So this main hello world is going to be inside of this body in the layout.tsx. And if we look at our code over here, we can actually see that that is the case. We see we have body, the body tag, and then we have our main tag here. So anything we put in here in the page.tsx is going to appear here. And then there's all these scripts that are being created behind the scenes for Next, but then the ending body tag and the ending HTML tag. We really don't want to modify anything in layout.tsx unless we need to. There are certain things that we will do, but generally, once you have this cleaned up and you have the title and the description how you want, I never really touch layout.tsx again. All of my work is in page.tsx, and then I kind of build off of that. So this is my starting point, which is my page.tsx. So I think that's enough for a little getting started tutorial. In the next video, I probably will go into a little bit more in depth and start building some components and start using some JSX, things like that.